This game is a first-person Metroidvania action-adventure title. It's semi-open world, but the worlds are linked with the hub. The story will keep the gameplay linear, but the players will have multiple pathways to complete their objectives. For the audience, this is aimed at teens and adults, and if this were to get rated by the ESRB, it will be rated T for teen, and it's will get released for all major consoles and on PC as well. The story takes place in the year 2144, and it follows the protagonist, Cameron J. Fell, and she has to bring down a large conspiracy with corporate world and extraterrestrial leaders, and she is joined by the Advena Bracada division to do so. The game will have first-person melee-focused combat. There will be dramatic finishers to finish off enemies, and everything will be upgraded with for all abilities and weapons that the player will collect throughout the game. This game is a Metroidvania, as mentioned before. It'll have an engaging story. There will be other modes besides the main story, such as the combat arena and battle challenges, and it will also use the Unreal Engine as well. Cameron is the player protagonist. Marcus is the leader of the division that she is a part of, and Jet is the division's AI, and he will always lead the player through tutorials and if they need help as well throughout the game. Everything in this game is first person. There will be a skill tree. There will be upgradable abilities and weapons, and there will be character attributes such as health, stamina, and shield. And you gain experience by completing missions or covering areas, and killing enemies, and discovering more items as you go. And with with each advancement the player makes, more experience will need to be collected to get more skill points. The cyber arm is the special ability feature for the protagonist. It will be powered by an energy system instead of ammo, unlike traditional first person games. And there'll be different powers for the player to use in combat and exploration. For example, you can shoot a grappling hook out of your arm to get to a higher place, for example. And there are upgrades to collect throughout the game, and they'll introduce new abilities to the player. The game is a Metroidvania, although the player will have defined goals. For example, there will be missions, and they are tied directly into the story, and there are others that are not tied to the story. So basically, there will be side missions to complete as well. Like for example, they'll have look for clues to free the scientists and to defeat the area boss. There are access points spread throughout the game, and this is the player's destination to spend points, restore their status, and go back to the headquarters. And when they do the last two, the enemies will respond when they do so, and it behaves like a Souls-like game. The heads-up display will display important information when it is needed. So, for example, if they're in combat, the health and shield and energy will be shown. And when they are exploring, the compass will be featured heavily along with the mission objectives when they need to be shown, when they aren't for sure where to go next. And in combat, there will be enemy danger indicators to show where enemies are attacking from as well. All of the worlds are connected with the HQ site, which is the hub world, and the worlds will be explored with varying sections. Like, for example, there'll be like the top level floor, there will be a dungeon included, for example, and there will be many diverse environments. They'll be in cities, they'll be in jungles, and they'll be in some other planets, and there are plenty of secrets to be found as well. The game has a stylized approach to its art style. It's based on reality, but it's exaggerated to make it distinguishable from the real world. and some inspirations from some other movies and video games like The Incredibles, Team Fortress 2, and Life is Strange. This is The Incredibles official artwork. On the left here, this is Team Fortress 2, and on the right is Life is Strange, the concept art. This is the Xbox control scheme. This is the PS5's control scheme for the DualSense controller, and this is the Switch controls, and they all translate with one another, mainly since they have the same amount of buttons and triggers and whatnot. This will main, this will control mainly like a first-person game. So the left stick will be the control the movements, and the right stick will be for the camera. It will be tailored for melee focused combat with limited shooting mechanics, and that's where it falls into familiar territory for some players. And it's best played with the gamepad versus a keyboard and mouse. Roughly 75 to 100 people will be needed to develop this game. They'll be split into multiple groups. First and foremost, the creative director, which would be me in this hypothetical sense, the producers, the higher ups in the studio, the programmers, the level designers, the artists, the music and audio team, the the story team, and the play testers would be external. So we will hire another group to come and play test the game and also provide a QA testing as well. For the game's timeline, this would roughly take around 2.5 years to 3 years to complete all the way. The first 2 months will be the production, laying it out, determining what will go into this game and what won't. And the meat of the development life cycle will be the production, which would roughly take 18 to 20 months. Everything will take place, including making assets and developmental testing while the game is being made. In post, which would take around 6 to 8 months, the game will be feature complete, and we will conduct the Q&A and the play testers and start debugging from their feedback. When it's done, it'll go gold, and this is where we start making the promotional materials, trailers, and start marketing the game. Then it will be released to manufacturing. This is when it goes gold. It'll take about a month and a half to two. So we'll be preparing the game for the release and on store shelves and physical copies, and also for digital storefronts online for the player to download. And the game will be out for general availability. Over the course of the semester, my game has matured into a more plausible experience, meaning that it could actually be developed into a real game. The lessons that I learned about how the player interacts with the game itself changed this project uh, considerably, meaning that I actually thought about how this would feel in the player's hands when they start playing the game. The design techniques that I learned throughout the semester were helpful too, such as making mechanics that make the player become engrossed with the game and doesn't detract from it. Another thing that I learned was that execution is the key for success. Everything you do has to be done well. If you want a pixelated art style, you got to make the pixel art look great. If you want to make great mechanics, as I just mentioned before, you have to do that well.